Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a moment discovering a legendary game, right? A true titan of its genre. Something you've heard whispered about in hushed, reverent tones as, game of the year, one of the best ever. You've devoured every glowing review, you've seen the passionate fan art, you've heard the epic soundtracks. But here's the catch, the twist in your own personal saga. You find yourself dropped right into the middle of its sprawling epic. A fundamental question immediately looms: are you experiencing this masterpiece as it was truly intended, with all its foundational context intact? Or are you stepping into a saga already in motion, risking a less impactful or perhaps even a fundamentally different journey? This creates an immediate tension for any discerning player, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's that feeling of, wait, did I miss Act 1? It really changes how you approach it.
Exactly. Today we're diving deep into exactly that kind of scenario, focusing on Mass Effect 2, specifically its fascinating and, well, somewhat contentious arrival on the PlayStation 3. This isn't just about a game. It's a compelling case study about the unique challenges, the surprising advantages, and the enduring debates that defined its PS3 release. It created a truly high-stakes narrative even before you pressed start. Mass Effect 2 is renowned for its iconic suicide mission, where player choices determine who lives and who dies, dictating the ultimate fate of their beloved crew. Big stakes there. But what if the console itself, the very platform you're playing on, presented its own set of choices and compromises for players to navigate?
That's an interesting layer, isn't it? The platform itself adding to the decision matrix.
What kind of cosmic consequences might that entail for your experience? We're going to explore how this acclaimed space opera finally landed on the PS3, how it's stacked up against its counterparts on other platforms, and the crucial decisions players face just to get what they considered the full story. What stands out to you about starting a series midway? That very question is at the heart of our deep dive today.
It's a classic gamer dilemma, really. Jump in now or wait and start from the beginning.
Our mission today is to extract the most important insights from reviews, forum discussions, and developer notes to understand the intricate layers of experience wrapped around Mass Effect 2 on the PS3. We're looking at everything, from its technical specifications and performance nuances to its narrative integrity and the very real, often passionate implications for gamers. We're talking about unearthing the true story behind this console port.
Looking forward to it. There's a lot to unpack there.
Now, before Mass Effect 2 even landed, the PlayStation 3 had already carved out quite a formidable niche for itself as an RPG powerhouse. It was a true haven for role-playing game enthusiasts, and critically, it stood out from its competitors. Unlike other consoles from that generation like the Xbox 360 and the Nintendo Wii, the PS3 boasted dozens, maybe even scores, of truly exceptional RPGs.
Yeah, the library was incredibly strong. People sometimes forget just how deep it was.
And when I say dozens, I mean a rich, diverse, and often groundbreaking library that offered something for every conceivable taste. You could embark on a sprawling medieval fantasy quest, riding on a dragon, in a vast open world like in Skyrim, feeling every gust of wind as you soared through the Nordic peaks. Or perhaps you preferred navigating a post-apocalyptic wasteland with your trusty canine companion by your side in Fallout New Vegas.
Two absolute giants right there. But it wasn't just the Western RPGs, was it?
Not at all. The PS3's RPG offerings were far more varied than just these behemoths. Think about the sheer breadth here, the vibrant tapestry of experiences available. For instance, there were tactical strategy RPGs like Valkyria Chronicles. This wasn't just another strategy game. Its distinct canvas graphics engine gave it this stunning, hand-painted aesthetic.
Oh, Valkyria Chronicles was beautiful, and that combat system, the Belied Z system.
Exactly. It blended turn-based strategy with real-time action, offering players unprecedented control over individual units on the battlefield. It added immense immersion and a strategic depth that was truly innovative for the time.
It really was a critical darling, and it showed the PS3 could handle these really unique artistic takes on the genre.
Or consider Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, which didn't just bring Studio Ghibli's gorgeous, whimsical art style to players' hands. It crafted a heartwarming, epic JRPG adventure with a unique creature-collecting combat system that resonated deeply with fans seeking a magical escape and a genuinely emotional narrative.
Another gem. These weren't just games, they were defining experiences that underscored the PS3's diverse and high-quality RPG offerings.
From grand space operas, which is where Mass Effect 2 itself eventually came into quirky, charming tales where every character is a musical pun like Eternal Sonata, The range was incredible.
And it was into this incredibly rich and competitive tapestry of RPGs that Mass Effect 2 arrived, carrying an almost unparalleled level of critical acclaim. What's truly fascinating here is how universally praised this game was, not just as a good game, but as a masterpiece, even before it graced the PlayStation 3. It's consistently known to be the best of the entire Mass Effect series, and is widely considered a significant, even revolutionary improvement over its predecessor. It solidified its place as one of the best video games of all time. This wasn't just a popular game, it was an award-winning phenomenon that redefined expectations for narrative-driven RPGs.
It really set a new bar, didn't it?
Absolutely. Mass Effect 2 didn't just win awards, it swept them. It snagged major accolades, including the coveted Game of the Year at the 14th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards, Best Game at the 7th British Academy Games Awards, and Golden Joystick's Ultimate Game of the Year. The praise was universal.
And what were the critics specifically highlighting?
They raved about its presentation and cinematography, which elevated in-game dialogue and cutscenes to a cinematic art form, making every interaction feel important. They highlighted the incredibly diverse and complex characters that populated Commander Shepard's crew, each with their own backstories, motivations, and loyalty missions that felt genuinely impactful.
Those loyalty missions were key, weren't they?
Absolutely crucial. And of course, the improved combat built upon the first game's foundations, transforming it into a much tighter, more responsive, and satisfying third-person shooter experience. IGN lauded it as a personal game brimming with raw emotion, highlighting the profound, almost visceral connection players forged with its cast of characters. Eurogamer specifically pointed out the immense weight of social interaction on the outcome of events, and that players feel actual pressure for their decisions, a testament to BioWare's unparalleled storytelling.
That weight of choice is so central to Mass Effect.
It is, and this level of undisputed acclaim immediately raises the stakes for any player, especially those considering a late entry on a new platform. The sheer weight of its reputation begs a crucial question. Can such a masterpiece truly be experienced fully, with all its emotional resonance, its intricate character development, and its impactful choices, without having played its direct predecessor?
Yeah, that's the core tension right there.
The anticipation for PS3 players was not just about getting to play a great game, but about whether they would get the full intended experience or merely a shadow of it. That potential for a diminished experience, or at least a fundamentally different one, was palpable for those PlayStation 3 players.
Absolutely, and that groundbreaking nature makes its delayed arrival on the PlayStation 3 all the more fascinating, because it immediately presented players with a different entry point into that acclaimed narrative. You see, the game wasn't initially destined for Sony's console. It was first released in January 2010 as a Windows and Xbox 360 exclusive.
Right, the initial exclusivity period.
Exactly. In fact, for quite some time, BioWare, the developers, initially denied that a PS3 version was even in the works, actively deflecting questions from eager fans. They even had to explain away some PlayStation 3 code that was mysteriously found embedded within the PC version.
I remember that. They said it was just Unreal Engine 3 artifacts, right?
Precisely. Stating it was merely a byproduct of using the Unreal Engine 3, which is a cross-platform engine, rather than an indication of an active PS3 port. They maintained a firm stance that it simply wasn't happening.
Which made the eventual announcement quite the surprise.
So imagine the collective gasp, the surprise, and, frankly, the immediate tension and renewed anticipation when BioWare officially announced at Gamescom 2010 that Mass Effect 2 was coming to the PS3 after all. This was a significant reveal, a major pivot after all the earlier denials, leaving many to wonder what had changed behind the scenes.
Yeah, what prompted the shift? Was it just market demand or something else?
We can only speculate, but even with this exciting news, players still had to wait a full year, with the game finally releasing in January 2011 on the PlayStation 3. This staggered release immediately created a compelling question. Was it worth the wait for PS3 players? What exactly did they gain, or perhaps even lose, by this delayed entry into such a celebrated series?
And you have to consider the technical challenge, too. Porting from the 360 to the PS3's cell processor. That wasn't trivial, especially for a game not originally designed for it.
A huge hurdle. The curiosity surrounding these questions created a palpable buzz.
And this delay brought with it a truly fascinating technical decision that aimed to set the PS3 version apart and, in theory, justify that year-long wait. Instead of simply porting the existing Xbox 360 code wholesale, BioWare made a unique and ambitious choice. The PlayStation 3 version actually utilized a modified version of the Unreal Engine 3 specifically, what they referred to as the Mass Effect 3 engine.
Wait, the engine for the next game?
That's right. This was the same engine that was actively being developed and refined for the then upcoming sequel, Mass Effect 3. It was almost like getting a sneak peek at the future of the series' technology, integrated into a game from the past.
Wow, okay, so that's a pretty big deal technically. What did that actually mean for the game?
Well, theoretically, it meant not just a simple port, but a version built on a more advanced rendering pipeline. The ME3 engine was designed to handle more complex lighting models, improve texture streaming, and potentially better asset management, all crucial for navigating the PS3's unique cell architecture, which, as we know, was notoriously challenging for developers.
All right, the cell was famous for being difficult.
Exactly. This allowed BioWare to push for more visually rich cinematics and slightly denser environments, aiming to leverage the PS3's strengths, even if it meant re-optimizing extensively for the hardware from the ground up rather than a direct port. BioWare's community coordinator, Evil Chris Priestley, was quite vocal about the promised improvements. He stated that the Mass Effect team has taken the time to utilize the PS3 hardware to the fullest. You will also see that the in-game graphics and cinematics are clearer and more vibrant on the PS3.
So clearer, more vibrant. Any other changes?
Beyond the engine upgrade, character models were said to be slightly improved, benefiting from higher polygon counts or better texture work maybe. And the controls were updated to better suit the PlayStation 3's DualShock controller, though a thoughtful option was included to revert to the Xbox 360 layout for those who preferred it.
That's a nice touch.
Definitely. The idea of getting a preview of the ME3 engine and ME2 on the PS3 certainly built an intriguing layer of curiosity and expectation around this late arrival port. Did this translate to a genuinely superior visual and gameplay experience, or merely a different one? And how did this promise of cutting-edge tech influence player expectations? That was the big question.
That's a critical point because the initial reception was indeed quite glowing, seemingly validating BioWare's ambitious technical approach. IGN reviewer Colin Moriarty, for example, didn't just praise the PS3 version. He went so far as to call it the best, most complete version of the game available.
High praise indeed, and his reasoning.
The upgraded game engine, which we just discussed, and the inclusion of extra downloadable content, or DLC, right out of the box. We'll get more into the DLC later. The Guardian echoed this sentiment with a glowing review, stating that the textures are slightly more sumptuous, the interface is almost imperceptibly slicker, and all of the Xbox's downloadable extra content is included.
Imperceptibly slicker. Interesting phrasing.
Isn't it? 3 new missions are on the game disc, while bonus characters, weapons, and armor are easily downloaded. The Guardian even concluded its review with a provocative statement, which is a shame it's better on PS3.
Wow. So, straight up saying it's better.
This sets up a truly crucial debate, doesn't it? From your perspective, given these technical upgrades and the bundled content, is there any argument to be made that sacrificing that initial narrative context from Mass Effect 1 might still be worth it for a new player getting a technically superior, more complete package, especially if they never played the first game anyway?
It's a really tough call. You're weighing tangible benefits, potentially better graphics, included DLC against something more intangible, which is that narrative foundation. For someone completely new, maybe the immediate value proposition of the PS3 version with all that extra content seemed more appealing than worrying about a game they hadn't played.
It forces us to weigh technical polish and immediate value against narrative integrity. And that's a tension point that defined much of the discussion around this specific release. And what we extract here is a critical insight. For story-driven games, the subjective experience and the sheer accessibility of playing on your preferred platform often outweigh minute objective technical superiorities. Better becomes a deeply personal metric.
It really does. And to truly understand that debate, we have to look at the objective technical breakdown, particularly from sources like Digital Foundry, who are renowned for their pixel-by-pixel, frame-by-frame analyses. What they found, interestingly, was a more nuanced picture that challenged the better on PS3 narrative that some initial reviews put forth.
Ah, okay, so Digital Foundry poured some cold water on it.
A little, yes. Their direct comparison concluded that the Xbox 360 version actually does run a little better than the PS3 version and benefits from slightly better visuals with more consistent lighting.
Okay, little better, slightly better visuals. So not night and day.
Not night and day, no. This immediately injects a dose of tension into the discussion as it contradicts the developer's promises and some early reviewer sentiments.
What were the specifics they pointed out?
Diving into the specifics, Digital Foundry noted that while the PS3 version did show performance advantages in places, perhaps in specific scene loads or particular combat encounters, the overall gameplay felt a touch jerkier. This wasn't a constant jarring issue, but rather a more frequent, albeit subtle, inconsistency in frame rates compared to the 360.
A touch jerkier.
And graphically.
Graphically, they observed that the PS3 version had been pared back a minuscule amount, often in areas like texture filtering or minor environmental details, though they conceded that the effect on the final game is essentially unnoticeable for the average player during actual gameplay. Right, so things you'd probably only spot in a side-by-side comparison.
Exactly. Their ultimate hierarchy for the best version was clear from a purely technical standpoint. PC first, due to its ability to achieve higher resolutions, uncapped frame rates, and superior visual fidelity. Then the Xbox 360, which offered a slightly smoother and more consistent experience. And finally, the PS3.
So PC, then 360, then PS3, technically speaking.
Technically, yes. This creates an objective tension. Despite the PS3's later release and the much-hyped new engine, did it truly surpass the original Xbox 360 experience from a purely technical standpoint? The answer, according to the Digital Foundry's meticulous analysis, was a nuanced no, suggesting that the promise of the ME3 engine didn't quite translate to a definitive technical win across the board.
It's almost like arguing over two identical shades of paint, isn't it? As if you need a magnifying glass to truly spot the difference. And even then, your eyes might play tricks on you after an all-night gaming session. But better is rarely a straightforward, purely objective measure, especially in gaming.
Very true. And Digital Foundry themselves acknowledged this nuance.
How so?
They qualified their findings by stating, technologically, it still feels like the Xbox 360 version has the edge, but occasionally lower frame rates and mostly unnoticeable graphical compromises on PS3 are not going to have much impact on the fun you have playing this game. They even added, scored today, this would still be a 10-10 game on both platforms.
Okay, that's a crucial qualifier, basically saying it's still amazing on both.
Precisely. They even noted that the preference for lighting will come down to taste, highlighting the subjective nature of visual appeal. Some might have preferred the PS3's lighting, even if it wasn't technically identical to the 360's.
This really opens up a profound discussion for us. How much do these minute technical differences, described as imperceptibly slicker or essentially unnoticeable, truly impact a player's enjoyment of a narrative-heavy RPG?
That's the core question. For a game like Mass Effect 2, where the story, characters, and choices are paramount.
Right. Is that slight, often debatable edge in frame rate or texture filtering enough to completely overcome other considerations? Like the sheer joy of finally being able to play such a celebrated title on your preferred console, or the convenience of bundled DLC.
Exactly. It's not just about the numbers, it's about the feeling, the immersive experience, and the accessibility of playing a masterpiece on the system you already own.
For many, the joy of finally experiencing Mass Effect 2 on the PlayStation 3 was a win, regardless of what Digital Foundry's graph showed.
Absolutely. The accessibility factor is huge.
And speaking of feeling, this is where the fan reactions and the persistent console war sentiment really came into play, adding another layer of tension and passion to the discourse. If you dive into the game FAQs and Reddit forum discussions from that time, you can practically feel the heat of the debates.
Oh, I bet. Console forums back then could get pretty intense.
Some users were very pragmatic, cutting through the technical jargon with comments like, "It's the same game on either console, what a surprise," or I don't understand why people care so much about this kind of stuff. Just buy the game for whichever system you prefer. Who cares if one is slightly better than the other?
That's a refreshingly grounded take. Just play the game.
These users were essentially saying, let's just enjoy the game for what it is. Their focus was squarely on the experience, not the minutiae.
Precisely. You see a clear, pragmatic viewpoint emerging from many players, prioritizing accessibility and enjoyment over nitpicking technicalities. Comments like, the best thing about the PS3 version is that it runs on a console that I actually own, and all that matters is that it's actually on the PS3, cut right to the core of personal preference.
Just having it available was the win for them.
For many, simply having the game available on their platform was the most significant factor, regardless of slight technical differences. This highlights the passion and sometimes the divisiveness within gaming communities, where platform loyalty can sometimes overshadow objective analysis.
But then, of course, you had others who were deeply entrenched in the console war mentality.
Yes, the console warrior.
seeing any comparison as an affront to their chosen platform.
Mm.
Some users, even jokingly, or perhaps not so jokingly, suggested buying an Xbox to avoid perceived PS3 issues, or dismiss those who whine about such slight differences as way too big of a nerd or a loser.
Ouch. Yeah, that kind of rhetoric was unfortunately common.
This dynamic raised the stakes beyond just graphics or frame rates. It touched on personal identity and perceived loyalty within gaming communities, injecting a tribal element into what should have been a technical discussion.
It really did. And it often derailed productive conversation about the actual game.
We even see debates about testing quality and patch reliance in modern gaming emerging from these discussions. For instance, players recalled critical bugs in titles like Dragon Age, Origins.
Oh, the dexterity bug. Yeah, that was a bad one. Ruined archers.
Exactly. Where dexterity didn't add damage to arrows, essentially destroying the archer class, and arguing that such a flaw should never have passed testing, placing the blame squarely on developer oversight.
A fair criticism, you could argue. That seemed like a major oversight.
There were also pointed discussions about PS3-specific save corruption bugs that needed patching, highlighting the general expectation for developers to ensure games are developed properly from the outset, not just patched post-release.
Which is a reasonable expectation, especially after waiting an extra year for the port.
This collective frustration and expectation for quality, especially after a delay, underscored the tension between players and developers. It's a vivid snapshot of a community grappling with what quality truly means in a complex, multi-platform release landscape.
It's a debate that's still very relevant today, isn't it? Launch states versus post-launch patches.
Definitely. And as we navigate these technical and fan-driven debates, we arrive at what many would argue was the truly central challenge for Mass Effect 2 on the PlayStation 3. The profound narrative dilemma it presented to new players.
Right, the elephant in the room. No Mass Effect 1 on PS3 at that time.
Exactly. This game, as we know, is the second in a meticulously crafted trilogy, and the first game, Mass Effect 1, was famously never released on the PS3 back then. This immediately created a significant hurdle for new players, a massive contextual void. We found a particularly poignant Reddit thread where a user posted, "Found old PS3 with Mass Effect 2. I am already deep in Mass Effect 2 but would appreciate your advice."
Oh, wow. That perfectly encapsulates the situation.
And this user's plight immediately resonates, doesn't it? Many of us have been in that exact situation, wondering if we're truly getting the full experience, or if we're simply watching a movie from the second act when jumping into a rich, story-driven saga midway. It creates an undeniable sense of curiosity and tension about what they might be missing.
You feel like you're missing the setup, the character introductions, the why behind everything.
The advice in that thread was incredibly diverse, highlighting the varying perspectives on narrative entry points. Some were unequivocal. Yep, you should have started with ME1.
The purists, yeah. Start at the beginning or don't start at all.
Asserting that the foundational story and character introductions were non-negotiable. Others recounted similar, circuitous experiences, like starting with ME3, then backtracking to ME2, and finally ME1.
Haha, the chronological shuffle. I know people who did that.
Piecing the narrative together out of sequence, almost like an archaeological dig. And then there were those who passionately argued for ME2's standalone strength, asserting that ME2 is the best combat UI and story. ME3 cleaned up a bit and concludes the story arc. ME1's controls suck hella bad and actually detracts from the overall experience.
That's a common sentiment, too. That ME1's gameplay, particularly the combat, felt dated compared to ME2, making ME2 a better starting point despite the narrative gap.
They felt the quality of ME2's gameplay and tighter narrative made it an excellent entry point, despite the missing context. But crucially, the core concern remained consistent across many responses. You're missing a good portion of character development and story.
And that's the crux of it.
The stakes here are not just about knowing plot points. It's about a player's personal investment in a truly interactive story, the feeling of agency that Mass Effect was renowned for. Can you truly feel the weight of a choice if you didn't experience the events that led up to it?
That's precisely the heart of the matter, and it raises the stakes immensely. Mass Effect 2's narrative is not just a sequel. It's intricately woven from the threads of its predecessor. It directly follows Mass Effect 1 in its story, picking up on the consequences of Commander Shepard's initial galactic struggles, the alliances forged, and the enemies made.
It really builds on that foundation.
Absolutely. The genius of the series, what made it truly groundbreaking, lies in its robust player choice mechanic. If you imported a character from a completed ME1 save game, several decisions the player made in the original game to impact the story of Mass Effect 2. This wasn't just window dressing or a few lines of dialogue, it was a deeply interconnected system that truly honored player agency.
Can you give some examples of how those choices carried over?
Sure, these choices had tangible, often profound consequences that rippled through the sequel. For instance, the fate of specific NPCs. Did you save the Council or let them die? Did you spare the Arachne Queen or eradicate her species? These decisions directly affected how others react to Shepard, influencing dialogue, loyalty missions, and even the availability of certain characters or resources.
Some actual gameplay consequences, not just flavor text.
Definitely. These decisions also impacted the rewards for completing missions, potentially offering possible discounts from merchants or unique quest outcomes based on your past diplomatic or aggressive actions. Romances you pursued or ignored in the first game would carry over, creating deeply personal story arcs that span the entire trilogy, making those relationships feel earned and significant.
That relationship continuity is huge for immersion.
Immense. And even the commander's morality, whether you played as a steadfast paragon or a ruthless renegade, would subtly and overtly shape the world around you, opening up different dialogue options and narrative paths. And then there's Mass Effect 2's own ending, which is famously a suicide mission, where outcomes range from the entire team surviving to the entire team being killed, Shepard included.
The ultimate consequence.
This isn't just about missing plot points, it's about missing your plot points, the personal investment in a truly interactive story where your past decisions literally shaped the present and future of the galaxy. The stakes are profoundly personal, and without Mass Effect 1, much of that weight and emotional resonance is lost.
So with Mass Effect 1 being a no-show on the PS3, BioWare had to come up with a workaround to address this gaping narrative chasm, and they did so with a unique solution called Genesis.
Yes, the Interactor comic.
This was a digital interactive comic that was included with the PS3 version and essentially served as a highly condensed, playable summary of the first game. It allowed the player to impact the story of the game by presenting key narrative moments from Mass Effect 1 and letting you make the major decisions at crucial junctures.
Trying to simulate that save import process, basically.
Exactly. The stated purpose was to allow players new to the franchise to experience Mass Effect 1 while making the story choices that have repercussions in Mass Effect 2, thus attempting to bridge that narrative gap.
Unnecessary evil, perhaps.
It sounds like a neat solution on paper, right? A quick way to catch up and make those critical choices without having to play a whole other game. But was Genesis a satisfactory replacement for actually playing through an entire 30-hour RPG?
That's the big question. Can a summary ever replace the experience?
Experiencing the character introductions, the world building, and the slow burn of rising tension firsthand. This creates a very meaningful conversation about narrative integrity and player immersion. Game Informer reviewer Joe Juba reacted negatively to the lack of save importation, which of course was unavoidable without ME1 on the platform.
Understandable frustration.
More critically, he pointed out that the decisions made in the Genesis comic have practically no context.
Yeah, that's the key criticism, isn't it? You're making these huge choices blind.
You're essentially being asked to make crucial galaxy-altering choices, like deciding the fate of the Council or the Arachne Queen, without having lived through the events, without forging personal connections with the characters involved, and without understanding the profound political and ethical implications that would give them weight and emotional resonance.
It just doesn't land the same way. You don't feel the weight of the choice because you weren't there.
It's like reading the Cliff's Notes of a complex novel, and then being asked to write a nuanced analysis of its deepest themes. The tension here lies squarely in the compromise. Genesis offered a shortcut to context, but at what cost to the depth and personal impact of the player's experience?
A significant cost, many would argue, but maybe better than nothing.
Perhaps. It was BioWare's attempt to solve an intractable problem for PS3 players. Now, moving beyond the core game and its narrative challenges, Mass Effect 2 was also known for its extensive downloadable content, or DLC, which added significant layers to the experience, further deepening the lore and expanding gameplay.
Oh yeah, ME2 had a lot of DLC. And much of it was really, really good.
These DLC packs were released over a substantial period from January 2010 to May 2011, effectively extending the game's lifespan and giving players more reasons to return to the galaxy.
It kept the game alive for a long time.
They range widely from single in-game character outfits to entirely new plot-related missions, offering everything from cosmetic changes to substantial narrative expansions that genuinely enrich the Mass Effect universe.
Some of the most notable were the narrative packs. The Normandy crash site, for instance, offered a somber, reflective mission to revisit the wreckage of Shepard's original ship.
A very poignant mission for ME1 players.
Definitely. Zaid, The Price of Revenge, and Kasumi Stolen Memory introduced two compelling new squad members, Zaid Masani and Kasumi Goto, each coming with their own unique loyalty missions that delved into their backstories and offered substantial new gameplay.
Adding more depth to the crew roster.
Then there were larger expansions like Firewalker, focusing on vehicle-based planetary exploration, Overlords, a dark and unsettling mission dealing with a rogue virtual intelligence, and critically, Lair of the Shadow Broker and Arrival.
Those last two felt particularly important, right?
Absolutely essential, really. These two in particular were not just side stories. They were vital narrative bridges designed to directly bridge to Mass Effect 3. Lair of the Shadow Broker saw Shepard team up with an old friend to hunt down a galaxy-spanning information broker, unraveling conspiracies and making crucial discoveries that had immense implications for the trilogy's overarching plot.
It felt like a mini-sequel in itself.
It really did. Arrival, on the other hand, was an urgent, isolated mission that served as a direct prequel to Mass Effect 3, signaling the imminent Reaper invasion and forcing Shepard to make a harrowing choice with galaxy-altering consequences.
Setting the stage perfectly for the final game.
Precisely. Beyond these story-driven additions, there were also various weapon and armor packs, like the iconic Blood Dragon armor and the powerful arc projector, and appearance packs that offered alternate looks for squad mates. This vast amount of post-launch content truly deepened the lore and provided additional gameplay, creating a sense of a continuously evolving galaxy for players. It's hard to imagine the full Mass Effect 2 experience without these crucial story extensions.
And this is where the PS3 version actually had a significant tangible advantage right out of the box.
The bundled DLC, that was a big selling point.
It really was. While Xbox 360 and PC players often had to purchase many of these substantial DLC packs separately, sometimes at a considerable cost. The PlayStation 3 version came bundled with some of the most critical and acclaimed ones right on the disc. Unlike its counterparts, the PlayStation 3 version included the Kasumi Stolen Memory, Overlords, and Lair of the Shadow Broker packs.
3 major story packs included. That's significant value.
Even the popular Blood Dragon armor, a distinctive cosmetic and functional upgrade, was included with the initial purchase.
So you got some cool gear too.
This offered a truly compelling value proposition for PS3 players. For a new player, getting these acclaimed narrative extensions, which we just discussed, are vital bridges to Mass Effect 3. As part of the initial purchase, certainly made the PS3 experience feel more complete in some ways.
Yeah, in terms of sheer content included on day one, the PS3 version arguably offered more.
It offered more story and gameplay right out of the box, potentially offsetting some of the PS3 version's technical nuances or the aforementioned lack of Mass Effect 1. This creates an interesting set of stakes for the consumer. Does this generous bundling of content effectively compensate for the narrative context that's missing from the prequel?
It's that trade-off again, isn't it? More content now versus the full backstory.
For many, the sheer volume of high-quality content included made the PS3 version feel like a fantastic deal, offering more bang for their buck, even if the prequel story still required an imaginative leap.
Or a quick read-through of the Genesis comic.
Right, exactly. However, this discussion around DLC, particularly its availability and acquisition, brings us to another significant aspect of the Mass Effect 2 release that generated considerable debate: the Cerberus network and the broader used game controversy.
Oh boy, the Cerberus network. Yeah, that definitely stirred things up.
Explain what that was.
The Cerberus network was an online downloadable content and news service that enables free bonus content for the game, which was accessible directly from the main menu. For those who purchased a brand new copy of Mass Effect 2, it required a one-time use access code to unlock this content, which included the Zaid, the Price of Revenge Squad Mate DLC, the Firewalker Vehicle Pack, and other cosmetic items and missions.
So key content locked behind a one-time code. I see where this is going.
Precisely. This immediately created a dilemma and a point of considerable tension for those who bought the game used. Users who purchased a pre-owned copy had to pay for the Cerberus network separately if they want access to the bonus content, usually around $15, I think.
So an extra cost just to get content that new buyers got free.
Exactly. This policy was a deliberate and, at the time, common move by publishers to combat the used game market. The argument was that when a game is resold by a retailer like GameStop, the publisher doesn't receive any profit from that second sale, cutting into potential revenue.
The infamous Project $10.
That's the one. By tying free bonus content to a one-time use code, publishers hoped to incentivize new game purchases, or at least recoup some revenue from the thriving used market.
But how did the fans react?
Well, this policy attracted criticism from some of the fan community who have criticized downloadable content as being overpriced and an incentive for developers to leave items out of the initial release to then sell back to players.
The on-disc DLC argument, essentially, or content held back.
Right. This raised broader questions about consumer rights, the true value of a game purchase, and the economics of the gaming industry. Players felt they were being punished for buying a used game, or for simply wanting content that many deemed essential to the full experience, like the Zaid character.
It forced players to weigh the cost of a used game against the additional expense of accessing content that felt like it should have been part of the initial package.
It was a forward-looking issue, wasn't it? A precursor to many digital rights and monetization debates we still see today, highlighting the constant tension between corporate strategy and player expectation.
Absolutely. So as we round out our deep dive, it's clear that Mass Effect 2's impact extends far beyond its initial launch window, even on the PS3, and continues to resonate with players and critics alike.
It has incredible staying power.
The game continued to receive attention years after its release, and is still cited as one of the greatest video games of all time by numerous publications. Games Radar, for instance, famously called it the Empire Strikes Back of video games, a comparison that immediately raises the stakes and expectation.
That's high praise indeed. It captures that darker, character-focused middle chapter feel.
Noting that few sequels have trumped the original as handily as Mass Effect 2. This wasn't just a successful sequel, it was a narrative triumph that managed to deepen the lore and elevate the emotional stakes set by its predecessor.
It really honed in on the characters.
Its innovative focus on characters and their deeper stresses and internal conflicts was highly praised, moving the genre forward by making the relationships, the personal loyalty missions, and the emotional investments central to the player experience, rather than just side quests.
And this profound emphasis on character and choice culminates in what many consider the absolute pinnacle of Mass Effect 2, the legendary suicide mission.
The suicide mission. Iconic.
This is the ultimate payoff, the moment where all of your actions, your loyalty missions, your ship upgrades, and your personal investment in your squad members converge into one harrowing, high-stakes, final assault. It's a meticulously designed finale where squad members will either survive or perish depending on the upgrades made to the Normandy SR2, their loyalty to Shepard, and the tasks they are assigned in battle.
Every little decision matters.
Every single one. Did you research the heavy armor for the Normandy? Did you secure a strong biotic for the biotic shield? Did you assign the right leader to the second fire team? These choices, seemingly small on their own, combine to determine a potentially devastating outcome. Eurogamer described this finale as some of BioWare's best ever work due to its choice complexity and the sheer emotional weight it carries.
It really felt like your mission, based on your playthrough.
Exactly. It's a testament to the game's design that such a dramatic, potentially tragic conclusion is directly dictated by your unique journey and choices. The tension leading up to this mission is legendary, keeping players on the edge of their seats, and the consequences are definitive, often leading to heart-wrenching outcomes.
And the consequences don't just end there with the fate of your squad. Mass Effect 2's ending directly sets up Mass Effect 3 with the Reapers awakening in dark space and descending upon the galaxy.
The cliffhanger ending, yeah, sets the stage for the finale.
This immediate lead-in means that your choices in ME2 have lasting, definitive, and indeed galaxy-shattering consequences for the entire trilogy. The tension doesn't dissipate once the credits roll. It escalates, promising an even grander, more desperate fight in the final chapter. Crucially, and perhaps most dramatically, if Shepard dies at the end of Mass Effect 2, the character cannot be imported into Mass Effect 3.
That's the ultimate consequence right there. Game over for your Shepard's trilogy arc?
This means your Commander Shepard's survival isn't just about completing a single game, it's about the very possibility of carrying your unique hero, your specific choices, and your personal story forward into the grand conclusion of the saga. The stakes couldn't be higher for the player's personal narrative.
Absolutely. So, wrapping this all up, what's truly fascinating here is how Mass Effect 2 on PS3 became more than just a game release. It was a compelling case study, a testament to player dedication, developer adaptation, and the complex, often fraught relationship between technology, narrative, and consumer expectations.
A microcosm of so many gaming debates.
Exactly. We saw how a game acclaimed as one of the best navigated the choppy waters of console exclusivity, delivering a technically advanced port thanks to that ME3 engine, but a narratively challenging experience for new players who lacked the context of the first game. The spirited debates around its technical performance, the strategic inclusion of bundled DLC, the controversial Cerberus network, and the necessity of the Genesis comic all highlight the intricate decisions and compromises involved.
Compromises made by both developers and players.
Right. Bringing a beloved title to a new and eager audience, it underscores the passion within the gaming community, where every detail, from a slight frame rate dip to the absence of a prequel, is meticulously scrutinized.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the discussions around Mass Effect 2 on the PS3 powerfully highlight the intrinsic value we, as players, place on a complete, consistent narrative experience. Even when faced with panelizing technical upgrades or convenient workarounds like the Genesis comic.
Yeah, narrative still feels king in a game like this.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the best version of a game isn't just about frame rates, graphical fidelity, or even bundled content, but about the journey you took to get there. The foundational context that gives every choice its weight, and the feeling of personal ownership over a truly evolving story.
Well said. This deep dive shows us that while technology can always be improved, the emotional investment in a narrative is often the most irreplaceable element.
So this raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider. In an era of constant remasters, remakes, and multi-platform launches, how much should we prioritize narrative continuity and original intent over technical improvements and accessibility?
It's a constant balancing act, isn't it?
Does skipping the first chapter of a story fundamentally alter your appreciation for its conclusion, even if the subsequent chapters are visually stunning and packed with engaging gameplay?
And can a developer truly fix a missed narrative by offering a summary? Or is some emotional depth simply lost forever for those who jump in mid-saga? Something to definitely think about.